Coagulation pathways and coagulation tests. In this lesson, we will cover the intrinsic, extrinsic, and common coagulation pathways. We will also learn how to interpret the key coagulation tests, including prothrombin time, activated partial thromboplastin time, bleeding time, thrombin time, D-dimer, fibrinogen level, and mixing studies. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to understand primary and secondary hemostasis, explain the intrinsic, extrinsic, and common coagulation pathways. Interpret the major coagulation tests, recognize the laboratory findings in common bleeding disorders, and confidently answer examination questions. Let us begin with the basics. Before understanding the coagulation cascade, you first need to understand hemostasis, which simply means stopping bleeding. Hemostasis occurs in two stages. The first stage is primary hemostasis. Immediately after a blood vessel is injured, the vessel constricts to reduce blood loss. Platelets then adhere to the damaged vessel wall, become activated, and aggregate to form a temporary platelet plug. A simple way to remember this is, platelets make the plug. However, this platelet plug is fragile and can easily break apart. That brings us to the second stage, secondary hemostasis. Here, clotting factors interact through a cascade of reactions to produce fibrin, which stabilizes the platelet plug and forms a strong blood clot. So remember this simple rule. Platelets make the plug. Clotting factors make the fibrin. Now let us look at the coagulation pathways. The coagulation cascade has three pathways: the intrinsic pathway, the extrinsic pathway, and the common pathway. Although they are often drawn separately, both the intrinsic and extrinsic pathways eventually join the common pathway to produce fibrin. The intrinsic pathway is activated when blood comes into contact with damaged endothelium or exposed collagen inside the blood vessel. The clotting factors involved are factor 12, factor 11, factor 9, and factor 8. A useful memory aid is 12, 11, 9, 8. Think inside. The intrinsic pathway is measured by the activated partial thromboplastin time, often called aPTT. If the activated partial thromboplastin time is prolonged, think about disorders affecting these factors. Common causes include Hemophilia A, which is a deficiency of factor 8, Hemophilia B, which is a deficiency of factor 9, heparin therapy, disseminated intravascular coagulation, and sometimes von Willebrand disease, because von Willebrand factor helps stabilize factor 8. Now let us move to the extrinsic pathway. The extrinsic pathway is activated by tissue injury outside the blood vessel. It involves only one key factor, factor 7. A simple way to remember this is factor 7 goes outside. The laboratory test that measures the extrinsic pathway is the prothrombin time, or PT. If the prothrombin time is prolonged, think about warfarin therapy, vitamin K deficiency, liver disease, or factor 7 deficiency. Because prothrombin time can vary between laboratories, we use the International Normalized Ratio, or INR, to standardize the result. The International Normalized Ratio is mainly used to monitor patients receiving warfarin. Now let us discuss the common pathway. Both the intrinsic and extrinsic pathways converge here. The common pathway consists of factor 10, factor 5, factor 2, and factor 1. Factor 10 activates factor 5. Factor 5 converts prothrombin, which is factor 2, into thrombin. Thrombin then converts fibrinogen, which is factor 1, into fibrin. Fibrin forms the stable clot that stops bleeding. A useful sequence to remember is 10, 5, 2, 1. Now let us compare the two main coagulation tests. Prothrombin time measures the extrinsic pathway and the common pathway. Activated partial thromboplastin time measures the intrinsic pathway and the common pathway. A common examination question asks which drug is monitored using which test. Warfarin is monitored using the International Normalized Ratio and prothrombin time. Heparin is monitored using the activated partial thromboplastin time. Now let us discuss bleeding time. Unlike prothrombin time and activated partial thromboplastin time, bleeding time does not assess clotting factors. Instead, it measures platelet function. If bleeding time is prolonged, think about disorders affecting platelets, such as thrombocytopenia, aspirin use, and von Willebrand disease. The next important investigation is platelet count. A low platelet count is called thrombocytopenia. A high platelet count is called thrombocytosis. Remember that platelet count tells you the number of platelets, while bleeding time tells you how well those platelets function. Now let us look at thrombin time. Thrombin time measures the final step of coagulation, which is the conversion of fibrinogen into fibrin. It becomes prolonged in heparin therapy, low fibrinogen levels, and disorders of abnormal fibrinogen. Another useful test is the fibrinogen level itself. Low fibrinogen occurs in disseminated intravascular coagulation, severe liver disease, and massive hemorrhage. High fibrinogen is commonly seen during pregnancy and inflammatory conditions. Next is D-dimer. D-dimer is produced when a fibrin clot is broken down. A raised D-dimer indicates that clot formation and clot breakdown have occurred somewhere in the body. It may be elevated in deep vein thrombosis, pulmonary embolism, disseminated intravascular coagulation, recent surgery, pregnancy, infection, and many other conditions. Remember this simple phrase: D-dimer means a destroyed clot. Another important investigation is the mixing study. When a patient has a prolonged prothrombin time or activated partial thromboplastin time, normal plasma is mixed with the patient's plasma. If the abnormal result corrects, the patient most likely has a clotting factor deficiency. If it does not correct, an inhibitor is present, such as lupus anticoagulant. Now let us look at several classic examination disorders. Hemophilia A is caused by factor VIII deficiency. The activated partial thromboplastin time is prolonged, while the prothrombin time remains normal. Hemophilia B is caused by factor IX deficiency. Again, the activated partial thromboplastin time is prolonged, while the prothrombin time is normal. Von Willebrand disease affects platelet adhesion and also reduces the stability of factor VIII. Patients usually have a prolonged bleeding time, a normal prothrombin time, and a normal or sometimes prolonged activated partial thromboplastin time. Finally, let us discuss disseminated intravascular coagulation, often abbreviated as DIC. In this condition, widespread clotting consumes clotting factors and platelets faster than the body can replace them. As a result, patients paradoxically develop severe bleeding. The laboratory findings are very characteristic. Prothrombin time is prolonged. Activated partial thromboplastin time is prolonged. Bleeding time is prolonged. Platelet count is reduced. Fibrinogen is reduced. D-dimer is markedly elevated. This combination is one of the highest yield examination patterns in hematology. To summarize, primary hemostasis involves platelets, while secondary hemostasis involves clotting factors and fibrin. The intrinsic pathway uses factors 12, 11, 9, and 8, and is measured by activated partial thromboplastin time. The extrinsic pathway uses factor 7 and is measured by prothrombin time. The common pathway consists of factors 10, 5, 2, and 1, ending in fibrin formation. Warfarin increases prothrombin time and international normalized ratio. Heparin increases activated partial thromboplastin time. Hemophilia A is factor VIII deficiency. Hemophilia B is factor IX deficiency. Von Willebrand disease prolongs bleeding time and may prolong activated partial thromboplastin time. Disseminated intravascular coagulation prolongs both prothrombin time and activated partial thromboplastin time, reduces fibrinogen and platelets, and increases D-dimer. If you understand these pathways and patterns, you will be able to interpret most coagulation questions with confidence.